A man stands on top of a ziggurat, the dead of night. Babylon's heavy, humid air clings to his skin, 100,000 mud bricks beneath his feet. No wind, the air is still, suffocating, faintly salt. He looks up, the sky so clear the stars nearly sting his eyes. But his gaze isn't fixed on the stars. The stars aren't going anywhere. What interests him are other things entirely. Stubborn, strange lights that shift from night to night, drifting silently among the fixed stars, each one tracing its own path. He counted 5, with the sun and the moon, 7. Maybe he scratched a small mark into a clay tablet. Maybe he turned to the man beside him and pointed. We don't know exactly. What we do know is this. He looked again the next night. 7 again. The night after that, 7. A month later, 7. A year later, 7. The number never changed. There was no telescope, no lens, no compass, just 2 eyes, an endless night, and a determination that went beyond patience. And every single time the answer was the same. The number of moving lights in the sky was 7. And this 7, this number that looks like nothing more than a digit, would become humanity's strangest obsession. Because once this number was noticed in the sky, it never left. It came down. It seeped into temples, calendars, laws, music, dreams, inscriptions on walls, fragments of statues, even into the human body itself. Today, your week has 7 days. There are 7 notes in music. In some traditions, the heavens are made of 7 layers. In others, 7 deadly sins are counted. In still others, there are 7 sacred rites, 7 wonders of the world, 7 colors of the rainbow. Shakespeare counted 7 ages in a human life. Rome was built on 7 hills. 7 sleepers spent centuries in a cave. Even fairy tales are stuck on this number. A princess lived with 7 dwarfs. A pair of boots covered 7 leagues in a single step. Across so many different fields, in so many different cultures, how is it always the same number? It cannot be coincidence. A repetition this widespread insists that something lies behind it. But that something doesn't come from a single religion, a single geography, or a single age. So looking for the answer in any one source would be a mistake. The answer, if there is one, is hidden where all these sources intersect. The answer is more concrete than you might think, and the place it began is exactly the top of that ziggurat. It started there, and it never stopped. The sky. Everything started there. Roughly 5,000 years ago, people living on the low plains of Mesopotamia, in what is now southern Iraq, began watching the night, systematically. Every night, at the same hour, from the same vantage point. From the tops of ziggurats, from observation platforms built of mud brick, armed with clay tablets and styluses. And they discovered something. The vast majority of lights in the sky never moved relative to one another. Fixed stars. Thousands of them, always in the same arrangement, always in the same place, wheeling together through the night like an enormous rotating map. But 7 among them were different. These shifted from night to night. They drifted slowly through the fixed stars. Some were fast, some were slow, some were bright, some were faint, but all of them moved. The sun, the moon, and the 5 planets visible to the naked eye, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn. 7. To grasp the impact of this discovery in the ancient world, consider this. For those people, the sky was not a map. The sky was alive. Anything that moved was the sign of a will, a force, a living presence. Stone did not move. Earth did not move. Mountains did not move. But these lights moved. Therefore, they were alive. The fixed stars were backdrop, scenery. But these 7 wandering lights, they were the actors. And every actor had to have a name, a personality, a power. And so each planet was paired with a god. The sun, the most powerful, the most brilliant, became the overseer of justice and order. The moon, ruling the night, measuring cycles, the silent guardian. Mars, with its reddish glow, the god of war. Venus, shining at dawn and dusk, the star of love and fertility. Jupiter, slow and magnificent, the king of the gods. Saturn, the slowest, the most distant, the lord of time. And Mercury, the fastest, the messenger of the gods, the small light carrying word from one end to the other. These pairings were not arbitrary. Each planet's color, brightness, speed, and path across the sky carried meaning. Look at how precise this was. The reddish hue of Mars evoked blood and battle. The way Venus blazed at dawn and dusk but vanished during the day made it the star of transitions, of thresholds. Saturn's extraordinary slowness, it took roughly 29 years to complete its circuit across the sky, turned it into the Lord of Time, the symbol of patience and inevitable endings. Mercury, on the other hand, was so fast it was often nearly impossible to catch. It would flare briefly at dawn and disappear, appear at dusk and vanish before night fell, which is precisely why it became the messenger's star. It was a number, but in the ancient world, a number meant a divine council, and this council had exactly 7 members. The priests of Babylon tracked these 7 wandering lights for centuries. They recorded their movements on clay tablets, where each planet rose, when it disappeared, when it aligned with another. This tradition of recording lasted more than 1,000 years, the longest unbroken observation program in the history of humankind. Some of these records can still be read today, and their precision is startling. When compared against modern calculations, they yield consistent results. Here's the striking part. This system did not stay in Babylon. It mingled with trade routes, traveled with migrations, shifted with conquests. It reached Egypt, it crossed into Greece, it seeped into Rome. From Persia, it touched India. Everywhere it went, the names changed, but the structure never did. 7 planets, 7 powers, a 7-layered universe. But the real impact of this spread was not geographical, it was conceptual. The idea of 7 planets did not merely change the names of gods, it fixed their number. Many pantheons housed dozens, even hundreds of deities, but in the celestial pantheon, the number was precise, 7. And over time, this number became a tool for thought. Understanding the sky now meant thinking in units of 7. And what happened next was something nobody had foreseen. This 7-layered celestial order descended to Earth. It seeped into the calendar, into architecture, into law, into art, into medicine, into every domain of human production. It gave shape to time itself. Everyone knows the week has 7 days, but very few know why. There is a common assumption. Creation in 6 days, rest on the 7th, therefore the week has 7 days. This explanation seems logical, but history tells a more winding story. The 7-day week was actually an astrological invention, and it emerged much later than most people assume, during the Hellenistic period. In those chaotic and creative centuries after Alexander the Great, when Babylonian astronomy and Greek philosophy collided and blended, the idea of assigning a planet to each day was born. The system worked in a way that was complex but elegant. Each of the 24 hours of the day was assigned a planet in sequence. The order ran from the most distant planet to the nearest: Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Sun, Venus, Mercury, Moon. The first hour received Saturn, the second Jupiter, the third Mars, and when all 7 planets were used, the cycle restarted. The first hour of the first day fell to Saturn, making that day Saturn's day. When you filled all 24 hours in this sequence, the first hour of the second day fell to the Sun, so the second day became the Sun's day. Continuing this cycle, the system repeated itself in exactly 7 days, and each day gained a planetary guardian. Saturday, Saturn's day; Sunday, the Sun's day; Monday, the Moon's day;
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, these carry the names of Norse gods, but beneath each one lies a Roman planet. Tyr for Mars, Odin for Mercury, Thor for Jupiter, Frigga for Venus. The names of the gods shifted, but the planetary structure survived intact. French makes this more transparent. Mardi is Mars's day, Mercredi, Mercury's, Jeudi, Jupiter's, Vendredi, Venus's day. In Spanish, Lunes is the moon's day, Martes, Mars's, Miércoles, Mercury's. Even in Japanese, the same structure holds. Getsuyobi is moon day, Kaiyobi, fire day, Suiyobi, water day. So the 7-day week did not begin as a religious commandment. It was born from the number of planets. The sky had been divided into 7 parts, so time was divided into 7 parts. This astrological calendar became official in the Roman Empire. Roman soldiers carried it, merchants carried it, slaves carried it. And from there, it spread across the entire world, along the Silk Road to China, on trading ships to India, with conquering armies to North Africa. But here there is a curious overlap, and it is deeply interesting. In the Jewish tradition, Shabbat, the 7th-day rest, is a concept far older than the astrological invention of the week. Some scholars argue these two traditions are entirely independent, one born from astronomy, the other from a belief about creation. Others suggest there was mutual influence. Which came first? Did the number of planets create the 7-day cycle, or was the 7-day cycle already in place when the planetary system was fitted onto it? There is no definitive answer, but the outcome is beyond debate. The 7-day week is the shared rhythm of 8 billion people living on this planet today. We are the heirs of a Babylonian observation. Every Monday, every Tuesday, every Wednesday, we live inside a calendar copied from the sky, and most of us are not even aware of it. Consider this. During the French Revolution, they tried to extend the week to 10 days. They called it the Decady. It seemed rational. The decimal system, revolutionary spirit, a fresh start. It failed. People complained. The day of rest came too late. Their bodies couldn't wait that long. The Soviets experimented with 5-day and 6-day weeks. Factories were to be severed from the 7-day rhythm. Productivity would increase, efficiency would rise. It failed. People returned to 7 every single time. Habit? Perhaps. But perhaps the 7-day rhythm has taken root in human biology or psychology far more deeply than anyone assumed. The sky shaped time, but the number 7 did not stop there. It descended further still, into the very body of the human being. There is a very old text. It fell outside the official religious canons, yet for centuries it circulated from hand to hand, read, debated, discussed. And in this text, when the creation of the human being is described, a startling detail emerges. The human was created from 7 components: flesh from earth, blood from dew, eyes from the sun, bones from stone, thought from the swiftness of angels, veins from clouds, and hair from grass.
Pause for a moment and look at that list. Every component is paired with a piece of nature. The human is made from earth, but not only earth, carrying the sun in the eyes, clouds in the veins, grass in the hair. 7 components, 7 elements of nature. The human being as a summary of the natural world. This is not an anatomy textbook. This is a poem. But beneath the poem lies a deep idea. The human is a miniature copy of the universe. If there are 7 planets in the sky, there must be 7 components in the human. The macrocosm, the great universe, was made of 7 parts. The microcosm, the human body, must therefore also be made of 7. Between the above and the below, a mirroring, an echo, a perfect symmetry. This thought, the idea that the human reflects the universe, was not confined to a single text. Across many corners of the ancient world, a similar intuition had taken hold, that everything in the human body has a counterpart in the sky.
The head corresponds to the sun, the heart to the moon, the lungs to the wind, the bones to mountains. And these correspondences always converged on 7. Why? Because if the number governing the universe was 7, then the number governing the human must also be 7. If the sky was divided into 7 planets, the human body must be divided into 7 parts. Otherwise, the human would stand outside the universe. To be part of the universe meant carrying its numbers. It meant being written in the universe's code. This intuition was so powerful that it influenced medicine for centuries. Some ancient physicians believed that diseases progressed in 7-day cycles: crisis on the 7th day, turning point on the 14th, moment of decision on the 21st. If a fever lasted 7 days, it would either break or deepen. Some physicians even administered medicines according to 7-day cycles. Dosage changed on the 7th day, treatment was reassessed on the 14th. Even the body counted time in 7s. In some traditions, the human life cycle was also divided by 7. Every 7 years, the body changes, the soul crosses a new threshold. At 7, the awakening of reason. At 14, puberty. At 21, the gate of maturity. At 28, full strength. At 35, the peak. At 42, the turning. At 49, the threshold of wisdom. The body aged by counting in 7s, and each 7 carried its own meaning. In some traditions, this cycle was taken so seriously that at the end of each 7-year period, a purification was expected. Old habits were abandoned, new beginnings were made, body and soul were reset together. But the question of how the human was created, in all its parts, in all its dimensions, is a much larger story, one we have not yet told. For now, this much is enough. The number 7 had descended from the sky into the body, and its next stop was deeper still, the soul itself. One of the ancient world's most daring claims was this: before coming to Earth, the soul passes through the sky. An ancient thinker had mapped this process like a chart. The soul sets out from beyond the stars, from beyond the 8th sphere in its pure and naked state, towards the Earth. But along the way, there are 7 stops, 7 planetary spheres, and at each sphere, the soul is given a gift, or more precisely, a burden. From the moon, it receives the life force. From Mercury, intelligence. From Venus, desire. From the sun, consciousness. From Mars, courage. From Jupiter, ambition. And from Saturn, inertia, heaviness, slowness, attachment to earthly pleasures. At each layer, the soul grows a little heavier. It transforms from pure light into a layered being. At the outermost sphere, Saturn, it is still nearly pure, but after passing Jupiter, it is ambitious. After Mars, aggressive. After Venus, passionate. Each planet adds another garment, and with each passage, the soul becomes a little more human, with all its beauties and its ugliness. Having passed through 7 layers, the soul arrives on Earth fully dressed. It is no longer pure. Each planet has added a layer, beautiful or ugly, useful or destructive. All the complexity of being human is born from the combination of these 7 gifts. Our courage comes from Mars, our ambition from Jupiter, our laziness from Saturn. We are the children of the planets, at least according to this ancient map. And at the moment of death, the process reverses. The soul begins to rise. Its first stop is the moon. There it returns the life force. Then it reaches Mercury, gives back intelligence. At Venus, desire. At the sun, worldly consciousness. At Mars, aggression. At Jupiter, ambition. At Saturn, inertia. And after passing through all 7 gates, it arrives at the 8th layer, the sphere of the fixed stars. What remains there is the pure soul. It carries nothing it brought from Earth, naked, clean, only itself. The mesmerizing aspect of this map lies in its symmetry. Descent and ascent are exact mirrors of each other. The soul that arrived dressed through 7 spheres departs by undressing through the same 7. Life, a brief pause between these two movements, a turbulent moment squeezed between one act of dressing and one act of undressing. This idea did not belong to a single tradition. In Islamic tradition, 7 layers of heaven are spoken of. The Prophet Muhammad's night journey, the Miraj, is described as a passage through these layers. According to the accounts, he encountered a different prophet at each level, faced a different reality at each one. At the first level, Adam. At the second, John and Jesus. At the third, Joseph. At the fourth, Enoch. At the fifth, Aaron. At the sixth, Moses. At the seventh, Abraham. 7 levels, 7 prophets, 7 encounters. And then, beyond all 7 levels, Sidrat al-Muntaha, the final boundary that no created being can cross. In some early Jewish mystical texts, a similar structure appears. The heavens rise layer upon layer, each level guarded by different angels, holding different secrets. In these texts, the ascent is perilous. Terrifying guardians confront the soul that is unprepared. In Dante's Divine Comedy, there are 9 celestial spheres, more than 7, but an expanded version of the ancient planetary model. At each sphere, different souls, different virtues, different degrees of light. The numbers shift, the names change, but the structure remains the same. The soul's ascent happens layer by layer, and each layer is a test, shedding something, letting something go, becoming a little lighter. For thousands of years, people stared at that sky, trying to read their fates in the stars. But that fear, that fascination, is a story for another night. The sky was not merely a view, it was a ladder, a vertical path where every rung was a planet, every level held a secret, and the number of rungs was 7. But it was not only the dead who climbed this ladder. The living could climb it too, if they passed through the right rituals, if they could endure the trials, if they could pay the price at every rung. One of the most powerful mystery religions of the Roman Empire had built a 7-step initiation system. In underground temples spread from Britain to North Africa, from the banks of the Danube to Anatolia, from the shores of the Rhine to the headwaters of the Euphrates, in the flickering light of torches, people ascended step by step. Each step was linked to a planet, a symbol, a ritual, and at each step, the initiate died a little more and was reborn a little more. The first step, Raven. Its guardian planet was Mercury, the messenger's star. The raven was the symbol of death. The initiate had to leave the old self behind. During the ceremonies, raven calls were imitated, wing-flapping motions were performed. The task at this stage was simple: service, carrying food and drink. Humility was the beginning of everything.
The second step, bridegroom. Its guardian planet was Venus. The greeting spoken at this level was beautiful. Hail, bridegroom. Hail, new light. The initiate had taken the first step toward the light, but was still deep in the dark. The third step, soldier. Its guardian planet was Mars, the star of war. And this was the great threshold where things turned serious. According to one account, the ritual went like this. In a dark cave, eyes tightly bound, hands tied behind the back, kneeling, the initiate waited, unable to see, unable to move, completely vulnerable. Then a crown was extended on the tip of a sword, and the initiate was required to refuse it. "My only crown is my Lord alone," the initiate had to declare. The crown was the symbol of ordinary power. To refuse it was to proclaim a higher allegiance. The forehead would also be marked with a sign. Some suggest this mark was cross-shaped, and some argue that similar rites in later traditions may trace their origins here. The fourth step, lion. Its guardian planet was Jupiter. This was the most critical threshold, because from the lion degree onward, the initiate was no longer a servant, but a full participant. Lion masks were worn,
roars were bellowed. And here a surprising detail. Those at the lion degree were forbidden to touch water. Their baptism was performed not with water but with honey. Fire and water were enemies, and the lion belonged to fire. They wore red cloaks and burned incense for the ascent of dead souls. The fifth step, Persian. Its guardian planet was the moon. At this degree, the initiate was represented by a sickle, an echo of the moon's crescent shape. Honey and grain were associated with the rituals. This degree carried the moon's face of abundance. The sixth step, Sun Runner. Its guardian planet was, naturally, the sun. The initiate was now the sun's representative on Earth, wearing blood-red garments, carrying a whip and a torch, representing the sun in the ritual meal. This degree held the right to sit beside the high priest, the only two individuals in the entire community who ate together and conducted the ritual side by side. And the seventh, the highest step, Father. Its guardian planet was Saturn, the Lord of Time. A staff, a dagger, yellow stripes over a red tunic. Addressed as Father of Fathers, the holder of this rank served for life. All ceremonies were directed by the Father, the spiritual father of the community, authority, guide, and intercessor in one. These temples, they were called Mithraic, were small, narrow, dark underground spaces, typically carved into a cave or a basement, sometimes beneath a Roman bathhouse, sometimes beneath an ordinary townhouse. Inside, long stone benches stretched along either side. An altar stood at the center, and the walls bore planetary symbols and scenes of a bull being slain. The ceiling was often painted to resemble the night sky, stars mapped in their positions, the zodiac wheel turning overhead. They were kept deliberately small. Each Mithraic was designed for a community of no more than 20 or 30. Secrecy was essential. This tradition left almost no written texts. Most of what we know today has been compiled from archaeological finds, carved reliefs, and commentaries from rival traditions. And yet, across every corner of the Roman Empire, from Britain to Syria, hundreds of Mithraic ruins have been found. The person who reached the seventh step had symbolically lived the entire cosmic journey. Their eyes were no longer the eyes of a raven, they were the eyes of a father. They had seen the dark, passed through it, and reached the light. The body had to be cleansed, the mind purified, the soul made light. Only then would the next step open. 7 steps, 7 planets, a death at each step, a birth at each step. Just as the soul passed through 7 spheres when descending from the sky, so the initiate passed through 7 thresholds here, but in the opposite direction, from below to above, from darkness to light, from raven to father. Was this number only the language of religion and mystery, or did it speak in another language too, one that could be heard, measured, felt as vibration? It did speak, and that language was music.
Most people today remember one of the ancient world's most enigmatic thinkers only for a geometry theorem. But this man was not a mathematician. He was a spiritual teacher. In southern Italy, he had founded a closed community. Its members lived by strict rules, shared secrets, let nothing leak to the outside. He is said to have traveled to Egypt, perhaps even farther east. When he returned, what he proclaimed was this: the universe is an order of numbers. Everything, every movement, every ratio, every relationship can be expressed through numbers. And then he described a striking discovery. He had been passing a blacksmith's workshop and had listened to the sounds the hammers made. Some hammers, when struck together, produced harmonious sounds, others discordant ones. He had gone inside and had the hammers weighed, and what he found shook him. The hammers that produced harmonious sounds had simple mathematical ratios between their weights: 2 to 1, 3 to 2, 4 to 3. Sound was governed by number. Music was mathematics. And if music was mathematics, then the universe must also be music, because the universe too was governed by mathematics. And then he put forward a very bold claim. The 7 spheres of the sky produce sound as they turn. Each sphere had its own tone, its own frequency, its own note.
The moon produced the lowest sound, Saturn the highest. And together these 7 sounds formed a cosmic harmony, the music of the spheres. We humans cannot hear this music because we have been immersed in it from the moment we were born, just like a fish that cannot hear the sound of the sea. This idea might seem speculative, but beneath it lay a very concrete discovery, a one-to-one correspondence between mathematical ratios and musical intervals. Divide a string exactly in half and you get an octave. Divide it into thirds and you get a fifth. Into fourths, a fourth. There is an unbreakable bond between numbers and sounds. And if this bond held on Earth, if mathematics could become music in a string, then it must also hold in the sky. The turning spheres must produce sound, and that sound must be harmonious, because the universe was not chaos, it was order. From chaos, no music comes, but from order, it does. 7 notes: do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si. The 8th note is the same as the first, only higher, a return to the beginning, a completion of the circle. The entire structure of music is built on these 7 sounds, just like the 7 days of the week, the 7 layers of the sky. And the ancient world saw no coincidence in this. The same number appearing in every corner was proof that the universe spoke a language. Numbers were the language of the universe, and that language's favorite word was 7. This thought influenced music theory for centuries. All the way through the Middle Ages, music was considered a branch of astronomy. Both dealt with numbers, both sought the order of the universe. In universities, music was taught alongside arithmetic, geometry, and astronomy, one of the 4 fields of knowledge called the quadrivium. And in an ancient myth, a nature god named Pan had fashioned a 7-piped flute from the reeds, the syrinx. According to the legend, Pan had chased a water nymph, and the nymph, reaching the banks of a stream, had wished herself into a reed and vanished, and Pan had carved a flute from those reeds. 7 pipes, 7 notes, 7 planets. Music was the voice of the cosmos, and that voice was blown through 7 pipes. Perhaps every time we hear music, we are, without knowing it, listening to the sky. From the sky to time, from time to the body, from the body to the soul, from the soul to music, we have traced 7's trail. But perhaps the place where this number appears in its most concentrated form is in the sacred texts. The 7th chapter of the Quran is Al-Araf, with 206 verses, one of its longest chapters. And this chapter may be the most comprehensive of them all. It begins with creation, the creation of Adam, the rebellion of Iblis, the forbidden tree, the descent to earth. Then it narrates the cycles of the prophets in succession: Noah and the flood, Hud and the people of Ad, Salih and the Thamud, Lot and destruction, Shuaib and the cheating of measures, Moses and Pharaoh. Within a single chapter, nearly all the great cycles of warning and ruin in human history are gathered together. The chapter's name, Al-Araf, is itself a striking concept, the barrier between paradise and hell. Upon that barrier wait those whose good deeds and evil deeds are equal, neither full reward nor full punishment. In the 7th chapter, what we find is uncertainty itself, being caught in between. Like the number itself, neither even nor divisible by 3. It has no middle.
Within the same tradition, another 7 draws attention. According to the accounts, Egypt's ruler had a dream. 7 fat cows were grazing when 7 thin cows appeared and devoured them, and 7 green ears of grain beside 7 dry ones. Nobody could interpret the dream. The court's soothsayers were helpless. But a young man in prison, Joseph, read its meaning. 7 years of plenty were coming. The land would give, the granaries would fill. But after them, 7 years of famine would come and consume those stores. Without preparation, hunger was inevitable. Here, 7 is not merely a number, it is a rhythm of time. Good and bad periods arrive in blocks of 7. Time moves in 7-fold cycles, just like the week. But this time, it is not days, it is years. And in the same geography, in Mesopotamia, where 7 was born, this number had also seeped into the oldest layers of the narratives. The Great Flood, it was told, began with rain lasting 7 days and 7 nights. The heavens opened for 7 days. The waters rose for 7 days. A goddess who descended to the underworld was forced to pass through 7 gates. At each gate, a piece of her was removed, and at the 7th gate, she arrived completely bare. And in that dark realm, 7 judges waited, 7 pairs of eyes that would decide whether return was possible. The number that was born in the sky had descended all the way into the underworld. In the Jewish tradition, there is yet another 7, the Noahide laws. After the flood, 7 fundamental moral laws that apply to all of humanity, not just the Jewish people, but everyone. Do not murder, do not steal, do not blaspheme God, do not worship idols, do not commit sexual immorality, do not tear a limb from a living animal, and establish courts of justice to uphold the law. 7 commandments. What is noteworthy is this: not one of these commandments is a command of worship. Not one is a ritual requirement. All of them are ethical boundaries, a universal minimum contract for human decency, and the number of its articles is 7. In the Christian tradition, there are 7 sacraments: baptism, the first consecration upon entry into the world; confirmation, the conscious acceptance of faith; Eucharist, the shared table, the shared body; confession, purification; anointing of the sick, preparation for death; holy orders, dedication to divine service; and matrimony, the witnessed union of 2 people. From birth to death, a sacred ceremony at every great threshold of life, 7 in total. The entire architecture of faith resting on 7 pillars. A person could theoretically live their whole life by the rhythm of these 7 sacraments, beginning with baptism, ending with the last anointing. Everything in between, marriage, penance, communion, distributed across the 4 to 6. Different traditions, different contexts, different meanings, but the number is always the same. In the Hindu tradition, there are 7 chakras, energy centers of the body, 7 rungs ascending from the base of the spine to the crown of the head. In the Buddhist tradition, it is recounted that the newborn Buddha took 7 steps, and at each step a lotus flower bloomed. In the Zoroastrian tradition, 7 stages of creation are counted: sky, water, earth, plant, animal, human, and fire. The geography changes, the language changes, the names of the gods change, but 7 stays fixed. It is as though 7 became the default unit of the sacred. If something is repeated 7 times, divided into 7 parts, composed of 7 steps, its chances of being sacred increases. 7 ceased to be merely a number and became a stamp of approval. And this stamp was never the property of a single culture. No empire invented it. No prophet commanded it. No school of philosophy designed it. 7 emerged on its own, everywhere, in every age, in every language. Not a language, but a grammar rule, a structure that existed before language itself. When we step out of the world of sacred texts and look at the concrete world, we find that 7 has not let go of us here either. Ancient Greece counted 7 wonders of the world. The Colossus of Rhodes, the bronze giant standing at the harbor's entrance, 30 meters tall. Sailors claimed to pass between its legs. The truth is disputed, but the image endured. The Temple of Artemis at Ephesus, 127 columns, the largest marble structure of its time. The man who set it ablaze only had one aim: to make his name immortal. And ironically, he succeeded. We still know his name today. The mausoleum at Halicarnassus, so magnificent a monument that grand tombs the world over came to be called mausoleums after it. The statue of Zeus at Olympia, coated in ivory and gold, 12 meters tall even seated, nearly touching the temple ceiling. The hanging gardens of Babylon, greenery cascading from terraced platforms in the middle of the desert, an irrigation system pumping water from below to above.
The lighthouse of Alexandria, towering above 100 meters, a massive tower visible from the sea for days, its flame burning through the night as a beacon for ships navigating the Mediterranean. And the pyramids of Egypt, the only one of the 7 wonders still standing today, waiting silently in the desert for 4,500 years, outlasting every empire that tried to claim them.
Why 7 wonders? Why not 8 or 10? In all likelihood, the answer is the same. 7 was the ancient world's number for complete. To count something to 7 was to finish the list. 7 was the symbol of wholeness, neither too few nor too many. To close a list at 7 was to declare it perfect. If a list reached 8, it would feel inadequate, as though more remained, as though it were unfinished. But the moment you said 7, the period was placed. According to legend, Odysseus's journey stretched to 7 years. He spent the greater part of those 7 years on a single island with Calypso. In an enchantress's palace, his men were turned to swine. From a one-eyed giant's cave, he escaped by wit alone. He resisted the song of the sirens. And after all these trials, only 7 years out, he could barely reach the shore of his homeland. Even a journey home was measured by 7's rhythm. In the 14th century, a thinker in North Africa divided the world into 7 climate zones. The idea was not new, it was inherited from the ancient Greek geographers, but this thinker gave it an entirely different depth. Each zone produced a different kind of human character. The first and second climates, near the equator, were excessively hot. The people there were described as light-spirited, living in the moment. The 6th and 7th climates, the deep north, were excessively cold. The people there were characterized as harsh and rough. But the temperate zones, the 3rd, 4th, and 5th, were the cradle of civilization. Here, learning flourished, art grew, states were founded, and this thinker added a striking observation: all prophets emerged from temperate climates. Geography shaped character, character shaped civilization, civilization shaped prophethood. 7 climates, 7 types of humans, 7 different destinies. The entire world divided into 7, and this division was not just a geographic map, but a moral and spiritual one. In Islamic tradition, there is a very special story, Ashab al-Kahf, the sleepers of the cave. According to the accounts, a group of young men persecuted for their faith during the Roman era fled the city and took shelter in a mountain cave. Their eyes grew heavy with exhaustion, and they fell asleep. A deep, extraordinary, timeless sleep. The sun would strike the mouth of the cave but never touch them, shifting to the right and to the left, never disturbing the sleepers. With them was a dog lying at the threshold with its forelegs outstretched. When they awoke, the world was utterly different. More than 300 years had passed. The empire that had persecuted them was gone. The faith they had fled to protect had become the faith of the land. One of them went to the market to buy food and held out an ancient coin. Nobody recognized it. The coin had long fallen out of circulation. Time had skipped over them entirely. And in this story too, the number 7 is hidden. The number of the sleepers is debated, 3, 5, or 7. The Quran relates this debate but gives no definitive figure. Say, my Lord knows best their number. 7 again, an ambiguity circling that number. They slept for 309 years. Some commentators argue that 300 is a solar calendar count and +9 is a lunar calendar correction. Even time was doing arithmetic in 7's shadow. And Rome's 7 hills, the legendary dimension that founded ancient Rome, the Palatine, Aventine, Capitoline, Quirinal, Viminal, Esquiline, and Caelian, an empire's foundation set on 7 hills. In reality, Rome's borders had long since expanded beyond the 7 hills, but the city's identity, its soul, its founding myth still rested on those 7. 7 here was not geographical reality, it was a founding myth. Just like the 7 wonders, just like the 7 days, the number was always larger than the fact. So far, we have followed 7's trail from the sky to the earth, from the body to the soul, from music to law,
from law to geography. At every turn, a different face appeared. At every gate, a different name was written, but the face behind them was always the same. And now the unavoidable question hangs in the air. But why? Why, to the naked eye, were there exactly 7 planets in the sky and not 6 or 8? Why did humanity choose this number, or did this number choose humanity? Perhaps there is no single reason. Perhaps multiple rivers empty into the same sea, but we can follow some of the currents.
Part of the answer is simple, perhaps even too simple. Without telescopes, without spacecraft, without mathematical models, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto were invisible. They were there, circling in the same sky, but human eyes could not reach them. Every person who looked at the sky with the naked eye, in every place, in every age, saw the same 7 lights. 7 in Babylon, 7 in Greece, 7 in India, 7 in China. This number was not a preference, it was an observation, a datum. The universe showed humanity 7, and humanity sanctified 7. Astronomy became theology. Theology became daily life. The naked eye could not unlock the universe's secrets, but it could see the number 7, and what it saw, it made sacred. Every civilization looked at the same sky, counted the same 7 lights, arrived at the same conclusion. There is something in this number. The sky itself was read like a message, and every line of that message said 7. But part of the answer may run deeper, and I have to admit, this one genuinely surprised me. Modern psychology discovered something curious. Human short-term memory holds an average of 7 items. Try to remember a phone number, a shopping list, a melodic sequence. Most people can retain between 5 and 9 units, but the median is always around 7. Known as the 7 plus or minus 2 rule, this finding points to a natural boundary of the human mind. Ancient peoples did not know this, at least not scientifically, but could they have sensed it? Why should countless institutions, laws, and rituals consist of exactly 7 units? Think about it. A list of 7 items feels complete. A story with 7 characters has a cast that is rich yet manageable. A ritual with 7 steps has a structure that is both meaningful and memorable. 5 feels a little short, a sense of something unfinished. 12 is too many. The mind looks for somewhere to wander, drowning in detail. But 7 is just right, neither too few nor too many. A person can comfortably hold 7 things in mind, comfortably follow 7 steps, comfortably grasp a 7-part structure. The 7 layers of the sky, the 7 days of the week, the 7 notes of music. All of these may have been born from the convergence of an astronomical observation and a cognitive threshold. The universe showed 7, the mind said 7 was enough, and at the point where the 2 intersected, the sacred was born. 2 signals from 2 separate sources met at the same point. The sky said 7, the human brain embraced 7. It was not a conspiracy, it was a resonance, 2 different frequencies vibrating at the same moment. And there is one more thing. In the ancient world, numbers were not abstract concepts, numbers were alive. Every number was believed to have a personality, a meaning, a power. Many traditions classified numbers, some masculine, some feminine, some perfect, some deficient. 1 is unity, indivisibility, the beginning. 2 is pairing, division, opposition. 3 is synthesis, balance, the divine triad. 6 is the first perfect number because the sum of its divisors equals itself. And 7? 7 never fit neatly into any category. It was not divisible by 2, by 3, by 4, by 5, or by 6. 7 could not be broken. And in the ancient world, a number that could not be broken was a number that could not be touched. A number that could not be split was a sacred number. There is a paradox here.
and the more I think about it, the larger it grows. Is it normal for something as simple as a number to be this deep? Can it be coincidence that so much meaning has piled up behind a single digit? 7 is not even. It cannot be divided. It cannot be shared equally with anyone. It does not divide evenly by 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6. It has no divisors other than 1 and itself. Mathematically, it is an unsettled number. There is 6, 2 times 3, perfect symmetry. There is 8, 2 times 4, balance. There is 10, 5 plus 5, completeness. But 7? It has no center. It cannot be balanced. It cannot be split into equal parts. And its sacredness may come precisely from this. People turned an indivisible number into the symbol of indivisible holiness. That which cannot be broken, therefore cannot be touched, therefore is sacred. The stranger among whole numbers. Defying order, yet forming the foundation of order.
Consider, 3 is a sacred number, but it divides into 2 and 1. 6 is perfect, but it splits into 2 parts, into 3 parts. 4 is stable, but it halves. 10 is powerful, but it breaks into 5s, into 2s. Each of them has a weak point. But 7, you cannot touch 7. You cannot break it. Every attempt at division leaves a remainder, and that remainder is the proof of 7's untouchability. Ancient thinkers saw this. They called 7 the virgin number because no multiplier could give birth to it. Other numbers were the product of a multiplication. 6 was 2 times 3. 8 was 2 times 4. But 7 came from no multiplication whatsoever. It was born on its own, both source and end unto itself. I have no definitive sentence to answer this thought, and maybe I don't need one. Maybe the power of some questions lies not in being answered, but in continuing to be asked. And maybe 7's greatest strength is exactly this. It seems to explain everything, yet resists being explained itself. The moment you think you've understood it, another dimension appears. When you think you've solved the sky, it seeps into the body. When you've grasped the body, it crosses into the soul. When you've understood the soul, it meets you in music. When you've solved the music, it enters the law. When you've completed the law, it appears in dreams. This number feels as if it doesn't belong to us, or rather, as if it were borrowed from the sky, borrowed 5,000 years ago from the top of a ziggurat and never returned. We built our world around it without ever asking permission. It has seeped into our calendars, our music, our faiths, our bodies, our dreams, and perhaps it can never be fully returned. Perhaps 7 really was a cipher of the universe. Perhaps it was merely a mental habit. Perhaps both were true at once, and that too is 7's final trick. We are looking for the answer, but perhaps 7 is a number that was meant to remain a question. And speaking of the sky, at the very center of these 7 planets stands one that overshadows the other 6. It is impossible to ignore. It rises every morning, sets every evening. In its absence, life fades. In its presence, everything comes alive. The sun. The light standing at the very heart of 7. The other 6 were shadows revolving around it, bright, but none as merciless as the sun. The most powerful, the most brilliant, the most relentless of these 7 lights. We discussed the wandering stars of the night, but the sun does not belong to the night. It is the ruler of the day. When it rises, the world wakes. When it sets, the world sleeps. The force that grows the plants, evaporates the waters, turns the seasons, makes life itself possible. And in the history of humankind, almost no civilization exists that did not worship the sun, exalt it, see it as a god or the symbol of a god.
From the banks of the Nile to the temples of distant islands, from the peaks of the Andes to the fire cult of Persia, from Rome's unconquered sun to Japan's rising sun, that light held meaning everywhere for everyone. One light, 1,000 names, a single awe. But that is another story. A story far bigger, far warmer, far more searing than the story of seven. The story of the sun, wide enough on its own to fill an entire night. For now, let us remember this. A man 5,000 years ago stood on top of a ziggurat and looked at the sky. He counted 7 lights, and one of those 7, the brightest, was the sun. The other 6 appeared at night, children of the dark. But the sun was different. When the sun appeared, the others vanished. It was enough on its own. On its own, it was a god. To understand why that light was a god everywhere, that too is a matter for another night.